Hi, I'm Jay with The Mindful Hunter, and I'm here to review a piece of non-traditional hunting gear for you today. Specifically, the Altra Lone Peak 4.0s, and these are in the mid height and the RSM edition, which stands for rain, snow, and mud. To be clear, this is not a head-to-head review placing this shoe against other shoes in the same class. What I specifically wanted to look at was I traditionally use a very stiff-soled hiking boot, almost on the level of like a sheep boot or a mountaineering boot. Currently, I'm running the Hanwag Trapper Top GTX edition. These would rank about a 4 out of 5 on a stiffness if you were to rate the shank. And I normally prefer a very stiff boot. I live in British Columbia. I spend a lot of time hiking in the mountains. So when it comes to side hilling, there really is no replacement for a stiff boot with a lot of ankle and arch support. However, this particular hunt, I was headed down to Arizona, and it was a different environment that I was used to hunting in. So it afforded me the opportunity to review this pair of shoes. And there's a couple reasons I wanted to review this pair of shoes. One, I specifically deal with Morton's neuroma. Without getting into all the details, it's an inflammation between the third and fourth metatarsal in your foot. It can also be between the second and third. Doesn't really matter. Basically, I get this extremely inflamed nerve that causes a lot of pain, which means I need a wide toe box to help decrease that. And most mountaineering boots are not geared with a wide toe box because by their very nature, they work more effectively the more that they can compress your feet and the less mobility there is inside that boot. So I've been exploring other options with a wider toe box in hopes that I could alleviate some of this discomfort from the Morton's neuroma. I've had multiple procedures, and I'm happy to get into the intricacies of Morton's neuroma and how that affects backcountry hunting in a future video. But just know that there was a particular foot issue that I was hoping to resolve with this pair of shoes. Also, I was bow hunting Coues deer, which requires a lot of stalking and a high degree of stealth in those stalks. So my original thought was, with the flexibility of the sole and the width of the toe box, I might be able to get across some of that lava rock without creating so much noise. So just keep that in mind. As I get into the review, I'm not saying this is a replacement for a stiff-soled boot, carte blanche in all circumstances. And I'm not saying that this is the best option of all lightweight hiking backcountry style runners / boots. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Something else to note here is that while I did put on a lot of miles every day, the area that we were hunting in Arizona, there was lots of 2-track ranching roads. So I was never more than a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile from a road. So it was more like 4 or 5, 1.5 to 2 mile walks per day, instead of the traditional backcountry bivvy hunt where you hike 9 miles in one go. Some limitations of this review is that it was an extremely dry environment where I was hunting, so I can't comment on the waterproof nature whatsoever of the shoe. So I'm hoping bear season here in BC opens April 1st, so I'm going to take these into the mountains a couple times, hopefully in some wetter circumstances, so that I can get some product feedback from how they operate and how they handle wetter climates. Okay, so first of all, let's get into some of the pros, some of the things I really liked about the shoe. For one, I almost have a hard time calling it a shoe because when you put it on, it feels so solid on your foot that I do feel calling it a boot is a more appropriate term. First thing I liked, very lightweight. Can't even compare. My Hanwags weigh in at almost 5 pounds. I haven't thrown these things on a scale, but there's no way that the pair of them weighs a pound together. Second would be the cost. So these come in at about $160 US, and a good pair of mountaineering boots are going to start in the $400 range. Next up would be the agility. I've never felt more sure-footed in a pair of boots, partly because of the flex, partly because of the tread lug design, and partly because of the wide toe box, but I felt very light on my feet, very agile and very nimble. Next up, they're definitely quiet Now, I still would recommend some type of stocking boot in addition to these. I'm currently looking at sneak boots, which are like a strap-on version that has a Berber fleece along the bottom. I did find when I got into the crunchy lava rock, no matter how quietly or slowly I tried to walk, I was still making an appreciable amount of noise. They also dry very fast. So like I said earlier, I did not get a chance to test them in wet conditions, but it was very warm midday. So I did have quite warm feet, and a couple times my feet would get sweaty mid-hike. As soon as I stopped for a few minutes, took a rest, had a bite to eat, within 10, 15 minutes, I could feel that my feet were dry already. So they're definitely made of a breathable fabric. So that was, I quite enjoyed that as well. I will say they definitely helped with the neuroma. I was able to hunt all day. A couple of times over the course of the entire week, I had to stop, stretch out my toes, give myself a 10 or 15 minute break. But overall, I could hunt hard, hunt all day, and I had very minimal problems with my neuroma. So they definitely worked well for that. So let's get into some of the things I didn't like, or what I perceive to be some of the weaknesses of this shoe. First of all, even though they claim to be waterproof, and while I can't attest to this one way or another, there's just simply no way that they're going to compete against a mountain boot in that regard, especially with the shallow top. I mean, you're never going to be able to cross a creek with water any deeper than this and not get a flooded shoe. So there's certain circumstances where they'll just never be able to compete with mountain boots in that regard. Next, the exterior is nowhere near as durable. By the third or fourth day, I was getting cactus thorns in quite a few places that a thick leather or synthetic-based mountaineering boot just never would have let in. While I enjoyed the flexibility and the agility these boots provide me, I train really extensively and I'm in really good shape. And I don't say that to be arrogant, I say that as a word of caution. If you do not have very flexible ankles, very strong calves, I would caution you against these because you're gonna burn out your lower extremities. Your calves are gonna be on fire midday. You're probably going to be dealing with some form of burnt out Achilles tendon, and I would assume some kind of shin splints. So just keep that in mind. If you are very comfortable walking around in the mountains with a very flexible boot, these are definitely an option that you want to look at. But if you haven't done that a lot, do some testing and trialing first, because you're going to be shocked at how much compensation a good pair of mountaineering boots are offering you in the lower extremities that these do not offer. Also, definitely cold in the morning, nowhere near as warm, nowhere near as insulated. And you can, not that you can feel the breeze through it, but when it was brisk and chilly in the morning, my feet got instantly cold. So that same breathability that helps when it's hot hinders when it's cold. Something else to note here is that I could not actually find another option on the market that provided all the features that I was looking for, like the Altra Lone Peak did. I looked at the Innovate Mud Claw. It's a very interesting shoe. I wouldn't mind wearing it for other purposes, but the fact that it was a low cut and not a high top, I was not a big fan of. There's a new Under Armour boot that Cam Hanes just came out with called the CH1 GTX. Haven't had a chance to wear this. It may be competition for this boot. I can't say for sure. So let's go over the benefits and features specifically of this shoe. Number one is the ergonomically shaped toe box. There's not another shoe on the market that has such an extreme version of this. So they market that as some form of proprietary, I think they call it foot shape. Next is the zero drop platform. So for those of you who are not super comfortable with technical shoes, what zero drop means is that there is no additional lift to your heel in relation to your toe. So when you're standing on bare feet, that is a zero drop situation. When you wear a normal pair of running shoes, dress shoes, hiking boots, your heel is actually elevated. I won't get into the intricacies and the details of why that is, but there's a very strong argument that boots with a zero drop platform provide a more ergonomic support for your foot and allow for a more natural functioning footbed. I greatly enjoyed that about these shoes. Next up is the gator trap. So there's actually little attachment points all around the shoe. I I'm assuming you need to buy proprietary gaiters. I run the Outdoor Research gaiters and they would not work on this shoe. You'd have to run it around the bottom just like you would with a normal boot. So I can't really comment on whether that's a pro or a con, but the option is there should you find gaiters that specifically attach to shoes like this. Then in the sole, they have DuraTread and Trail Claw, which are two proprietary marketing terms that basically refer to the layout of the lugs and the quality of the material. The soles held up fairly well. The foam around the outside definitely took a beating from all the cactus. I don't think there's anything you could take to Arizona that wouldn't get the hell beat out of it. I joked around when I was down there and I said, this is where gear comes to die. I would not recommend taking new gear into the Sonoran Desert ever. Take your old stuff, beat the hell out of it, and throw it out when you're done. Or have a spare set of gear that routinely gets beat up in that type of environment. Because I've never been in an environment where my gear took such an intense toll as I was when I was in the Sonoran Desert. And lastly, on the features and benefits is eVent. So eVent is a proprietary fabric that would be like a Gore-Tex or a Hypervent that claims to be highly breathable. What does breathable mean? It does not let water in, but it does let water out. Now, to a certain degree, for that to operate perfectly is impossible. You're always going to sacrifice something. You're either going to sacrifice the ability to evacuate moisture in an effort to retain a higher level of waterproofness, or you're going to sacrifice less waterproofness in a desire to be more breathable and let more heat escape. You see this in rain gear all the time. The thicker the rain gear, the more you sweat. So the question in rain gear is, do you want to be warm or do you want to be dry? I can only comment on the eVent's capabilities surrounding moisture evacuation. And I thought it held up really well. Like I said, my feet got sweaty from time to time, but as soon as I had a bit of a break or just stopped walking, I could feel the heat leaving the shoe and I could feel my foot drying out. Overall rating, I'm going to give it a 3.8 out of 5. Now, that's kind of a bullshit rating because it's a safe rating, because it's not a 5 out of 5 and it's not a 2 out of 5. But here's the thing. I've really only experimented with this shoe on one hunt in a set of very limited circumstances. So would I recommend you throw your mountaineering boots away and switch to a light, highly flexible shoe? Definitely not. I have severe concerns about packing out large animals, especially if you have any amount of side hilling. I never had a pack that weighed more than 20 pounds on my back for this particular hunt. If you were trying to pack out an elk quarter with 100 pounds on your back in these through very steep, demanding circumstances, I would be concerned. However, for the very specific nature of the hunt that I was on, they were more than capable, and I would highly recommend them for that particular environment. Finally, I would recommend that you have to try these for yourself, and I would maybe go try on a couple different pairs first before you decide which pair you want to buy, because based on your degree of comfortability hiking, your ankle flexibility, and your calf strength, these may be a great option or they may be a terrible option. That's going to be a very individualized choice that you're going to have to make for yourself. So overall, I thought it was a very interesting experiment. I enjoyed them. I'm definitely going to keep these around for backpack cardio, for other similar hunts where I don't have extremely long, extremely heavily weighted hikes. And overall, I find them a very comfortable shoe. And I'm happy I purchased them. They're very high quality, and I can highly recommend Altras for a variety of purposes. Now, what's up next? I'd still like to find a mountaineering option that solves my wide toe box neuroma issue. So I've actually recently been in contact with Lathrop & Sons, and they have a custom fitting option where they actually ship you these carbon sheets that take imprints of your feet, and then you trace them, take a bunch of pictures, send them back, and you have a one-on-one phone consultation with them. So I've just initiated this process. I'm still waiting for those sheets to come in the mail, but expect that video sometime in the next few weeks to a month. I'm going to proceed down that track and see about getting a custom fit pair of boots. If you have any questions, comments, or want to know anything further, please feel free to hit me up or leave a comment below. Thanks.